Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the frontier's edge, staring at the massive blue planet spinning slowly before them. The ship had been traveling for 3 months to reach this place. The long journey through space was finally over. "Captain, we're getting those strange signals again," said Tony Rivera from his seat at the communications panel. His fingers moved quickly over the controls. "They're much stronger now, definitely coming from the planet." Jake nodded and walked over to look at Tony's screen. The signals looked like nothing he had ever seen before. They came in waves, like music, but not quite like any music humans made. Dr. Lisa Wong looked up from her science station. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her eyes were bright with excitement. "The signals are definitely artificial, Captain. Someone down there is trying to communicate. Or something," added Amanda Stone from the security station. She was a tall woman with short blonde hair and careful eyes. As the ship's security chief, she always thought about danger first. Jake had commanded the frontier's edge for 5 years. They were explorers, sent out by Earth to find new worlds and new life. This was the first time they had found signs of intelligent aliens. "Tony, can you clean up those signals? Make them clearer?" Jake asked. "I'm trying, Captain. Give me a few more minutes." Tony's hands moved over his controls. He was good at his job. If anyone could figure out the alien signals, it was him. Bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. All 4 crew members focused on their work. This was the moment they had all dreamed of. First contact with an alien species. "Got it," Tony said suddenly. "The signals are much clearer now. They're beautiful, Captain. Like singing, but not with voices." Jake listened as Tony played the cleaned-up signals through the bridge speakers. The sounds were strange, but somehow pleasant. They rose and fell like ocean waves, with a rhythm that almost felt familiar. "It's harmonic," Lisa said, her voice full of wonder. "They're communicating through harmonic frequencies. Like musical notes, but much more complex. Can we send a response?" Jake asked. Tony nodded. "I think so. I can try to copy their pattern and send it back. Do it." Tony worked for several minutes, creating a simple response that matched the aliens' musical style. He sent it toward the planet, and they all waited. The answer came quickly. The alien signals changed, becoming faster and more excited. Even without understanding the language, it was clear the aliens were happy to hear from them. "They want to talk," Lisa said, smiling. "This is incredible." Over the next hour, Tony worked to establish basic communication. The aliens seemed very eager to make contact. They sent mathematical sequences, star maps, and simple pictures. The humans sent similar information back. "I think they want us to come down to their planet," Tony said finally. "They keep sending coordinates and what looks like landing instructions." Amanda frowned. "Could be a trap, Captain. We don't know anything about them." "Or it could be the greatest discovery in human history," Lisa added quickly. "We have to take some risks." Jake thought for a moment. His job was to explore, but also to keep his crew safe. "Can we get more information first? Learn more about them before we go down?" Tony nodded and got back to work. Over the next few hours, the aliens sent more and more information. They called themselves the Vorthic. They showed pictures of their cities, which looked like they were made of crystal. The Vorthic themselves looked like living gems, with bodies that seemed to be made of some kind of clear, colored stone. "They're beautiful," Lisa said, looking at the pictures. "And their cities are amazing. Look at those towers." The crystal towers in the pictures were tall and thin, reaching high into the sky. They seemed to glow with their own light. The whole planet looked peaceful and advanced, but as the humans learned more, they noticed something strange. The Vorthic kept mentioning something they called the Devourer. They sent pictures of temples and spoke about ceremonies and sacrifices. They seemed to be afraid of something, Tony said, frowning at his translation program. They keep talking about this devourer thing. Maybe it's their word for death, Lisa suggested, or some kind of natural disaster. Or maybe it's another species, Amanda said, something that hunts them. Jake listened to all of this with growing interest. The Vorthik seemed friendly and peaceful, but they were clearly afraid of something. The humans needed to understand what before they made contact in person. The Vorthik sent more information about the devourer. They described it as a massive creature that lived in their oceans. It had many long arms, they said, like tentacles. Its eyes were dark and empty. Its mouth was big enough to swallow entire ships. Sounds like some kind of sea monster, Tony said. A very big one, Lisa added, reading the descriptions. They say it's been terrorizing their people for thousands of years. The more the Vorthik described the devourer, the more interested Lisa became. As the ship's biologist, she was fascinated by any new form of life. But something about the description seemed familiar, like she had heard of something similar before. They worship it, Amanda said, reading more of the translated messages. They built temples to honor it and keep it happy. Worship a monster? Jake asked. That seems strange. Maybe they don't have a choice, Lisa said. If it's really as dangerous as they say, maybe worship is their only way to survive. The Vorthik explained that they performed regular ceremonies to keep the devourer calm. They lowered food into the deep parts of their oceans, hoping to satisfy the creature's hunger. If they didn't do this, they believed the devourer would rise up and destroy their civilization. They're living in fear, Jake said, feeling sorry for the aliens. Their whole society is built around being afraid of this thing. Maybe we can help, Lisa suggested. We might know things about sea creatures that they don't. Or maybe we should stay away from their monster, Amanda said practically. We don't want to make it angry. Jake made his decision. We're going to make contact, but we'll be careful. Tony, tell them we want to visit their planet and learn more about their culture. The Vorthik response was immediate and excited. They sent detailed landing coordinates and what looked like safety instructions. They seemed desperate to meet the humans in person. They're sending us to their capital city, Tony said. And Captain, they want to show us their great temple. The one dedicated to the devourer. Perfect, Jake said. We'll learn about their culture and their monster at the same time. As the Frontier's Edge moved into orbit around the Vorthik planet, Lisa stared at the blue oceans below. Somewhere in those waters lived the creature that an entire civilization feared. She wondered what it really looked like and why the description seemed so familiar. Prepare for landing, Jake announced. We're about to make history. The ship began its descent toward the crystal cities of the Vorthik. None of the humans could imagine what they were about to discover about the difference between monsters and dinner. The landing pad was made of smooth, clear crystal that seemed to glow from within. Jake Morrison stepped out of the shuttle first, followed by Lisa Wong, Tony Rivera, and Amanda Stone. The air on the Vorthik planet was breathable, though it smelled slightly of salt and ozone. 3 Vorthik waited for them at the edge of the landing pad. They were even more beautiful in person than in the pictures. Their bodies looked like they were carved from living gemstones, each one a different color. The tallest one was deep blue, like a sapphire. The second was green, like an emerald, and the third was clear as a diamond. The blue Vorthik stepped forward and made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Tony held up his translation device and waited for it to process the alien language. Welcome, sky travelers, the device said in a mechanical voice. I am High Harmonizer Zethkal. We are honored by your presence. Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly. Thank you for welcoming us. I am Captain Jake Morrison. These are my crew members Lisa, Tony, and Amanda. The Vorthik made pleased sounds that reminded Lisa of crystal glasses ringing together. They seemed genuinely happy to meet the humans. Come, Sethkal said through the translator. We will show you our great city. But first, you must understand our most important place, the Great Temple of Pacification. The Vorthik led them through streets made of polished crystal. The buildings around them were tall and graceful, reaching toward the sky like frozen music. Other Vorthik stopped to stare at the humans, making soft harmonic sounds that seemed to be expressions of curiosity. Your city is beautiful, Lisa said, looking around in wonder. How do you grow these crystals? We do not grow them, Sethkal replied. We sing them into shape. Our voices resonate at the proper frequencies to form the crystal structures we need. Tony was fascinated. You build with sound? All things respond to the proper harmonic frequencies, the green Vorthik explained. We learned this truth long ago when we first needed to appease the devourer. At the mention of the devourer, all three Vorthik made lower, more somber sounds. Even the other Vorthik in the street seemed to quiet down. Everything we do is connected to the devourer, Sethkal continued. Our whole civilization exists to keep it peaceful. They walked for 20 minutes through the crystal streets. The city was larger than it had looked from space. Thousands of Vorthik lived here, all of them going about their daily lives under the shadow of their great fear. Finally, they reached the Great Temple of Pacification. It was enormous, bigger than any building the humans had ever seen. The crystal walls rose high into the sky, and the whole structure seemed to pulse with a soft, rhythmic light. This is where we perform the sacred calming, Sethkal said. Every 7 of your days, we gather here to send our offerings to the devourer. The inside of the temple was even more impressive than the outside. The walls were covered with carvings that told the story of the devourer. Jake could see images of the monster rising from the ocean, its tentacles destroying cities, its dark eyes bringing terror to the Vorthik people. Tell us about the devourer, Lisa said, studying the carvings. When did your people first encounter it? Sethkal's harmonic voice became sad and fearful. It was 3,000 of your years ago. Our ancestors lived in great cities by the sea. They were proud and thought they were the masters of this world. The Vorthik led them to a large carving that showed Vorthik cities near the ocean. The crystal people in the carving looked happy and peaceful. Then the devourer came, Sethkal continued. It rose from the deepest parts of our oceans, bringing destruction and terror. Look, the next carving showed the monster emerging from the water. It was huge, with long tentacles and dark, empty eyes. The Vorthik cities were being destroyed, their crystal walls cracked and broken. How big is it? Amanda asked, studying the carvings. Larger than your flying vessel, the diamond-clear Vorthik replied. Its tentacles can reach across entire harbors. Its beak can crush the strongest crystal. Beak? Lisa asked suddenly. It has a beak? Yes, Sethkal said. A great, terrible beak that can bite through anything. And its tentacles have circles of teeth that can grab and tear. Lisa felt a strange feeling in her stomach. The description was becoming more and more familiar, but she couldn't quite place why. What happened after it first appeared? Tony asked. Our people tried to fight it, Sethkal said sadly. But our weapons could not harm it. It was too large, too powerful. Entire armies were destroyed by its tentacles. They moved to another part of the temple, where the carvings showed battles between the Vorthik and the devourer. The Vorthik had weapons that looked like crystal spears and energy beams, but nothing seemed to work against the monster. For many years, our civilization was almost destroyed, Sethkal continued. The devourer would rise from the depths and attack our coastal cities. Millions of our people died. We were forced to abandon the oceans and live only inland. But you survived, Jake said. How? The great discovery, Zethkal said, his voice filling with reverence. Our wisest ancestors learned that the devourer could be calmed through worship and offerings. They built the first temple and began the sacred calming ceremonies. The carvings showed Vorthic building temples and lowering containers of food into the ocean. The devourer was shown accepting these offerings and returning to the depths. Since then, we have lived in peace, Zethkal said. As long as we perform the ceremonies and give the devourer what it needs, it stays in the deep places and does not trouble us. What kind of offerings do you give it? Lisa asked. Processed nutrients, the green Vorthic replied. Concentrated proteins and minerals. We lower them into the deepest parts of the ocean, where the devourer dwells. They were led to a viewing platform that looked out over the ocean. In the distance, Lisa could see several Vorthic vessels moving slowly across the water. Each one was carrying large containers. They go to perform the sacred calming, Zethkal explained. Every 7 days, without fail. If we miss even one ceremony, the devourer becomes angry. Has it ever become angry? Amanda asked. In recent times? Once, 50 years ago, a storm prevented the ceremony, Zethkal said, his voice becoming frightened. The devourer rose from the depths that very night. It destroyed 3 fishing vessels before we could perform an emergency ceremony to calm it again. Lisa watched the vessels in the distance and felt the familiar feeling growing stronger. Something about this whole situation seemed wrong, but she couldn't figure out what. The devourer is always watching, Zethkal continued. It knows when we are supposed to bring offerings. It knows when we are late. We live every day knowing that our survival depends on keeping it satisfied. Your whole civilization is built around fear of this one creature, Jake observed. Yes, Zethkal said simply. But what choice do we have? It is too powerful to fight, too dangerous to ignore. Worship is our only option. As they watched, one of the vessels in the distance stopped. The Vorthic on board began lowering a large container into the water. Even from this distance, Lisa could see them moving carefully, as if they were afraid of making any sudden movements. They must be very careful, the Diamond Vorthic said. Any loud noise or sudden motion could awaken the devourer from its rest. Lisa found herself thinking about Earth's oceans and the creatures that lived in them. The description of the devourer was becoming more and more familiar. Large tentacles, a beak, circles of teeth on the tentacles, living in deep water, attracted to food offerings. Has anyone ever seen the devourer clearly? She asked. I mean, up close? All 3 Vorthic made sounds of horror. No one seeks to see the devourer, Zethkal said. That would be madness. To look upon it is to invite death. But Lisa was becoming more and more convinced that she knew what the devourer really was. If she was right, the Vorthic had been living in unnecessary fear for thousands of years. The question was, should she tell them? That night, the humans stayed in guest quarters made of smooth, warm crystal. The Vorthic had given them a beautiful room with windows that looked out over the ocean. But Lisa could not sleep. She kept thinking about the devourer and why it sounded so familiar. She got up and walked to her portable computer. The Frontier's Edge had a complete database of Earth's marine life. Lisa started searching through the files, looking for creatures that matched the Vorthic's description. Large tentacles, deep ocean dwelling, beak, sucker rings with teeth, attracted to food. The pieces fit together in her mind like a puzzle. No way, she whispered to herself. But the more she compared the descriptions, the more certain she became. She found the file she was looking for. Mesonicatuthis hamiltoni, the colossal squid. Lisa stared at the pictures and videos on her screen. The creature looked exactly like the carvings in the Vorthic temple. It's a squid, she said out loud. They're worshipping a giant squid. Lisa spent the next hour reading everything in the database about colossal squids. They could grow up to 14 meters long. They had long tentacles with hooks and sucker rings. They lived in the deep ocean and rarely came to the surface. They had large beaks for crushing prey. Everything matched. The Vorthic's terrifying monster was just a big squid. Lisa felt excited and sad at the same time. Excited because she had solved the mystery. Sad because the Vorthic had been living in fear for thousands of years for no good reason. In the morning, she called the other humans to her room. Jake, Tony, and Amanda gathered around her computer as she showed them what she had discovered. Look at this, Lisa said, showing them pictures of colossal squids. Compare it to the carvings we saw yesterday. Tony whistled softly. They're identical. The tentacles, the beak, everything. So their monster is just a squid? Amanda asked. A big squid, Lisa corrected, but still just a squid. On Earth, we study them. We catch them. We even eat them sometimes. Jake stared at the pictures. They've built their entire civilization around being afraid of something that we consider seafood. Not exactly seafood, Lisa said. Colossal squids are pretty. Rare on Earth. But they're not monsters. They're just animals trying to survive like any other animal. Should we tell them? Tony asked. Jake was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, I don't know. This is their whole culture. Their religion. What if we're wrong? We're not wrong. Lisa said confidently, look at the evidence. It's definitely a cephalopod, probably closely related to Earth squids. But what if telling them destroys their society? Amanda asked. What if they can't handle the truth? What if not telling them keeps them living in fear? Lisa replied. They're using huge amounts of resources to feed this thing. They can't explore their own oceans. They've limited their entire civilization because of one animal. Jake made his decision. We need more proof. Lisa, you said this creature probably behaves like Earth squids. Can you predict its behavior? I think so, Lisa said. Based on what the Vorthic told us, it probably comes to the surface when it's hungry or during mating season. The regular feeding schedule they maintain probably keeps it calm and well fed. What would happen if we actually saw it? Jake asked. Lisa thought about this. If it's really just a large cephalopod, it should behave like one. It might be curious about us, or it might try to avoid us. It's probably not the aggressive monster the Vorthic think it is. You want to see it, Amanda said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Lisa admitted. As a scientist, I need to see it to be completely sure. And if I'm right, maybe we can help the Vorthic understand what it really is. Jake considered this. It's dangerous. If you're wrong, if it really is some kind of super predator, we could all die. And if we're right, Lisa said, we could free an entire civilization from thousands of years of fear. Tony was looking at his translation device. We could ask the Vorthic to let us observe it. Tell them we want to learn about their sacred creature. They'll think we're crazy, Amanda said. Maybe, Jake agreed. But maybe they'll be curious about how we humans view their monster. Later that morning, the humans met with High Harmonizer Zeethkal and the other Vorthic leaders. The crystal beings were happy to see their guests and eager to show them more of their culture. We have a request, Jake said carefully. We would like to observe the Devourer. From a safe distance, of course. The harmonic sounds the Vorthic made were unlike anything the humans had heard before. They were sharp and discordant, full of shock and fear. You wish to see the Devourer? Zeethkal asked through the translator. This is madness. No one seeks to see the Devourer. On our world, Lisa said, we study dangerous creatures to better understand them. We think we might be able to help you understand the Devourer better. Help us? The Green Vorthik asked. How could you help us? We have studied the Devourer for 3,000 years. We have experience with creatures like it, Lisa said. We might see things that you have missed. The Vorthik leaders talked among themselves in their musical language. The sounds they made were worried and uncertain. This is very dangerous, Zethkal said finally. If the Devourer sees you, it might become angry. It might attack our city. We'll be very careful, Jake promised. We'll stay in your ships, follow your safety rules, and leave immediately if there's any sign of danger. Why do you want to do this? The Diamond Vorthik asked. What could you possibly learn that we do not already know? Lisa chose her words carefully. We want to understand how you have managed to live in peace with such a dangerous creature. Your success in controlling the Devourer could help other species that face similar problems. This seemed to make sense to the Vorthik. After more discussion, Zethkal agreed to the request. We will take you to see the Devourer, he said. But you must understand, this is incredibly dangerous. If anything goes wrong, we might all die. We understand, Jake said. The next day, the humans joined a Vorthik expedition to the deep ocean. The Vorthik ship was made of the same crystal as their buildings, but it was designed to move through water. It was beautiful, but also seemed fragile. The ship is built to make no sound, Zethkal explained as they traveled. Any noise might wake the Devourer if it is sleeping. The Vorthik crew moved very carefully, speaking only in the softest whispers. They seemed terrified, but also excited. None of them had ever deliberately sought to see the Devourer before. It took 3 hours to reach the deep water where the Devourer lived. The ocean here was dark blue, almost black. The Vorthik ship moved slowly and quietly across the surface. It is down there, Zethkal whispered, pointing into the depths. In the deepest trenches. Sometimes it rises to feed. They waited for 2 hours, but nothing happened. The Vorthik began to look relieved. Perhaps it is sleeping, the Green Vorthik said. We should return before. He was interrupted by a sound from the water. Something large was moving beneath them. It comes, Zethkal said, his voice full of fear. The Devourer rises. The water around the ship began to churn. Something huge was rising from the depths. The Vorthik crew made frightened sounds and moved to the far side of the ship. Lisa pressed her face to the window, her heart pounding with excitement. In a moment, she would know if she was right. The creature broke the surface 50 meters away from the ship. Lisa gasped. It was exactly what she had expected. A colossal squid, probably about 20 meters long. Its tentacles waved in the water as it floated near the surface. Its large eyes looked around curiously. It's beautiful, Lisa whispered. The Vorthik stared at her in complete shock. To them, she had just called their greatest fear beautiful. Squid seemed to notice the ship. It began swimming toward them, its tentacles moving gracefully through the water. It attacks, Zethkal cried. The Devourer attacks. But Lisa could see that the creature was just curious. It swam closer to investigate the strange object floating on the surface. This was normal behavior for a squid encountering something new. It's not attacking, Lisa said. It's just curious. Look at how it's moving. The squid circled the ship once and floated nearby. Its tentacles moved gently in the water. It seemed calm and peaceful. This is impossible, Zethkal said. The Devourer should be destroying us. Lisa turned to face the Vorthik. Because it's not really a Devourer. It's just an animal. A very large animal, but still just an animal. The time had come to tell them the truth. Lisa stood at the window of the Vorthik ship, watching the giant squid float peacefully in the water. The creature's tentacles moved slowly and gracefully. Its large eyes looked at the ship with what seemed like mild curiosity. Look at its behavior, Lisa said to Zethkal. It's not trying to attack us. It's just investigating. The high harmonizer made confused sounds. But it is the devourer. It destroys everything it touches. No, Lisa said gently. It's not a devourer. It's what we call a cephalopod. On our world, we have many creatures just like this one. The other Vorthic crew members gathered around to listen. They were still afraid, but their curiosity was stronger than their fear. You have creatures like the devourer? The green Vorthic asked in amazement. Smaller ones, usually, Lisa explained. But yes, we call them squids and octopuses. They're actually quite intelligent animals. Tony held up his translation device. Lisa, should I show them the database files? Lisa nodded. Tony activated his portable screen and showed the Vorthic pictures and videos of Earth's squids and octopuses. The crystal beings made sounds of wonder and disbelief. These creatures live in your oceans? Zethkal asked. Yes, Lisa said. And humans swim with them, study them, and sometimes even catch them. You catch creatures like the devourer? The diamond Vorthic's voice was full of shock. Well, usually much smaller ones, Lisa admitted. But yes, we catch them and eat them. The silence that followed was complete. All the Vorthics stared at Lisa as if she had said something impossible. You eat them? Zethkal asked finally. Some? Species, yes, Lisa said. They're considered food on our world. Good food, actually. Several of the Vorthic made sounds like crystal breaking. They seemed unable to process what they were hearing. Meanwhile, the giant squid continued to float. Near their ship, it seemed calm and peaceful, nothing like the terrible monster the Vorthic believed it to be. But how can this be? The green Vorthic asked. The devourer has terrorized our people for thousands of years. Lisa thought carefully about how to explain. I think there's been a misunderstanding. This creature isn't evil or trying to hurt you. It's just a large animal that needs food to survive. But it destroyed our cities, Zethkal protested. It killed millions of our people. That might have happened, Lisa agreed, but probably not because it was evil. Maybe your cities were built in its feeding grounds. Maybe you accidentally made it angry or scared. She pointed to the squid floating. Near them. Look at it now. It's not attacking us. It's just curious about our ship. But the sacred calming ceremonies, the diamond Vorthic said. They keep the devourer peaceful. They keep it fed, Lisa corrected. You've been feeding it regularly for thousands of years. Of course it's peaceful. It doesn't need to hunt for food because you bring food to it. The Vorthic considered this. The idea that their monster was just a hungry animal was difficult for them to accept. So you're saying, Zethkal said slowly, that the devourer is not a divine punishment or a cosmic horror. It's just ... An animal? A very large animal, Lisa said. But yes, just an animal. Tony decided to make things worse. Actually, on Earth, we have a dish called calamari. It's made from squid tentacles. It's quite popular. The translation device conveyed this information to the Vorthic. The sounds they made were unlike anything the humans had heard before. Several of the crystal beings actually cracked from the shock. You eat the tentacles? Zethkal asked in a voice that sounded like wind blowing through broken crystal. Tony said, realizing he had made a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that. Amanda stepped forward. What Tony means is that humans have a different relationship with these creatures. We don't fear them the way you do. You don't fear them at all? The green Vorthic asked. We respect them, Lisa said. We understand. They can be dangerous if threatened or cornered. But we don't worship them or live in terror of them. The squid near their ship seemed to lose interest. It began to swim away, its tentacles propelling it gracefully through the water. It's leaving, Zethkal observed. Just like that. No destruction. No terror. Because we didn't threaten it, Lisa explained. We observed it calmly, and it observed us calmly. That's normal behavior for this type of creature. As they watched the squid disappear into the deep water, the Vorthix seemed to be processing everything they had learned. Their entire worldview was changing. If what you say is true, Sethkal said finally, then our civilization has been built on a lie. Not a lie, Jake said gently. A misunderstanding. Your ancestors did the best they could with the knowledge they had. But we've wasted so much, the Diamond Vorthix said sadly. So many resources feeding the Devourer. So much of our lives spent in fear. You've also survived, Amanda pointed out. Your feeding program kept the creature calm and prevented conflicts. That was actually pretty smart. The journey back to the Vorthix city was quiet. The crystal beings seemed lost in thought, trying to understand what this revelation meant for their society. When they reached the harbor, news of their encounter had already spread. Hundreds of Vorthix gathered to hear what had happened. They made excited, worried sounds as Zethkal told them about the peaceful encounter with the Devourer. The Sky Travelers say the Devourer is just an animal, Zethkal announced. They say their people have similar creatures on their world. The crowd of Vorthix made sounds of disbelief and confusion. Some seemed angry, others curious, and many appeared frightened by the implications. An older Vorthix came forward. If the Devourer is just an animal, what does this mean for our temples, our ceremonies, our whole way of life? I don't know, Zethkal admitted. We must think about this carefully. Over the next several days, the Vorthix society was filled with debate. Some believed the humans and wanted to change their relationship with the Devourer. Others refused to accept that their ancient beliefs could be wrong. Lisa spent her time working with Vorthix scientists, showing them everything humans knew about cephalopods. She explained their behavior, their intelligence, and their needs. They're actually quite smart, Lisa told a group of young Vorthix. They can solve puzzles, recognize individual creatures, and even use tools. The Devourer is intelligent? One of the young Vorthix asked. Probably very intelligent, Lisa said, which means it might actually understand your feeding schedule. It's learned that if it stays in the deep water, food will come to it regularly. This idea fascinated the young Vorthix. They began to see the Devourer not as a mindless monster, but as a clever animal that had learned to work with their society. But the older Vorthix were less accepting of these new ideas. They had lived their entire lives believing in the Devourer's divine power. Changing that belief was difficult. What if you're wrong? An elderly Vorthix asked Lisa. What if we stop the ceremonies and the Devourer destroys us? We could test it gradually, Lisa suggested. Maybe change the feeding schedule slightly and see what happens. Observe its behavior more carefully. You're asking us to gamble with our entire civilization, the elderly Vorthix said. You're already gambling, Jake pointed out. You're spending enormous resources on something that might not be necessary. And you're limiting your own development by staying afraid. The debate continued for days. The Vorthix society was splitting into two groups. Those who believed the humans and wanted change, and those who wanted to keep their traditional ways. Finally, Zethkal made an announcement that surprised everyone. Tomorrow, he said, we will perform an experiment. We will invite the humans to join us for a feeding ceremony. But this time, we will try to communicate with the Devourer as we would with any intelligent creature. The announcement caused an uproar among the Vorthix. Some thought it was a wonderful idea. Others thought it was the most dangerous thing anyone had ever suggested. But Lisa was excited. If she was right about the creature's intelligence, this experiment might prove once and for all that the Devourer was just a very large, very smart animal. The question was, would the creature respond to attempted communication, or would it react? with the terrible violence the Vorthik had always feared? The morning of the experiment arrived with clear skies and calm waters. 3 Vorthik ships waited in the harbor, along with the human shuttle. Half the city had gathered to watch this historic moment. Jake Morrison stood on the deck of Zeth Call's ship, wearing a diving suit that the humans had brought from the frontier's edge. Lisa Wong was beside him, also suited up for underwater work. Tony Rivera and Amanda Stone remained on deck with their equipment. "Are you certain about this?" Zeth Call asked Jake. "If the Devourer becomes angry when it sees you in its domain, ... We've studied creatures like this for centuries," Jake said calmly. "Lisa knows how to interact with them safely." The Vorthik crew was more nervous than the humans had ever seen. They were about to break thousands of years of tradition and protocol. Some of them looked like they expected to die. "Remember," Lisa said to everyone, "cephalopods are intelligent but cautious. If we move slowly and don't threaten it, it should be curious rather than aggressive." The ships moved out to the deep water where the Devourer lived. As they had done for 3,000 years, the Vorthik prepared to lower containers of food into the ocean. But this time would be different. "Lower the food containers slowly," Lisa instructed. "When the Devourer comes to investigate, I want to enter the water and observe its behavior up close." Several Vorthik made sounds of horror. "You want to enter the water with the Devourer?" The green Vorthik asked. "I want to see if it reacts to humans the same way it reacts to Vorthik," Lisa explained. "If I'm right about its intelligence, it might be curious about a new type of creature." The food containers were lowered into the water. As always, the Vorthak performed their ritual songs, hoping to keep the Devourer calm. But today, the humans were listening carefully to those songs. "Tony," Jake said quietly, "are you recording those harmonic patterns?" "Got them," Tony replied. "If the creature has learned to associate those sounds with feeding time, we might be able to use them to communicate." They waited for 20 minutes. Then the water around the ships began to move. Something large was rising from the depths. The Devourer broke the surface about 100 meters away. It was even larger than it had seemed during their first encounter. Its tentacles spread out across the water like enormous arms, and its huge eyes looked toward the ships. "It knows the routine," Lisa observed. "Look how it's positioning itself near the food containers." The creature swam closer, moving with surprising grace for something so large. Its tentacles reached toward the containers of food, but it stopped. When it noticed something different, the human shuttle was floating alongside the Vorthik ships. The Devourer had never seen anything like it before. "It's curious about our ship," Amanda said. "Look at how it's studying it." The creature's large eyes focused on the shuttle. Its tentacles moved through the water as it circled the unfamiliar object, but it showed no signs of aggression. "Now," Lisa said, putting on her diving mask, "I'm going in." Before anyone could stop her, Lisa jumped over the side of the ship and into the water. The Vorthik made sounds of panic, but Jake held up his hand to keep them calm. Lisa floated on the surface, moving slowly and deliberately. She was about 50 meters from the Devourer. The creature immediately noticed her and began swimming in her direction. "Lisa," Jake called through the water communicator, "how are you doing?" "It's incredible," Lisa's voice came back. "It's so graceful. And those eyes, it's definitely intelligent. I can see it thinking." The Devourer approached Lisa carefully. Its tentacles moved through the water around her, but they didn't touch her. The creature seemed to be studying this strange new being that had entered its domain. "It's not afraid of me," Lisa reported. "And it's not being aggressive. It's just ... curious." For 10 minutes, Lisa and the Devourer observed each other. The creature seemed fascinated by this small, strange creature that moved so. differently from the Vorthic ships it was used to seeing. "I'm going to try something," Lisa said. She began swimming in a slow circle around the creature, moving her arms and legs in a rhythmic pattern dot. To everyone's amazement, the devourer responded. It began moving its tentacles in a similar rhythm, copying Lisa's movements. "It's mimicking her," Tony said in wonder. "It's trying to communicate." "This is impossible," Zethkal said, his harmonic voice full of awe. "The devourer is ... playing?" Lisa continued her swimming patterns, and the devourer continued to copy them. The creature seemed to be enjoying this new form of interaction. "Tony," Jake called, "play back those harmonic patterns the Vorthic used during feeding time." Tony activated his equipment and played the recorded Vorthic songs through underwater speakers. The effect was immediate. The devourer turned toward the sound and made responding sounds of its own. "It recognizes the feeding songs," Lisa said excitedly. "It's been learning your language for thousands of years." The creature swam toward the food containers, following its usual routine. But this time, it moved more slowly, as if it wanted to continue interacting with the strange new visitors. "I think it enjoys the company," Lisa said. "It's been alone in these deep waters for so long, except for your feeding visits." After the creature had finished with the food containers, it returned to where Lisa was floating. It seemed reluctant. "To leave, I'm going to try one more thing," Lisa said. She began swimming toward the surface, signaling for Jake to join her. Jake jumped into the water and swam to Lisa's position. The devourer watched with great interest as a second strange creature entered its domain. "Hello there," Jake said, though he knew the creature couldn't understand his words. But his tone was friendly and calm. The devourer moved closer to both humans. Its tentacles formed a loose circle around them, but it made no threatening moves. Instead, it seemed to be protecting them, like a host welcoming guests. "This is unbelievable," Amanda said from the ship. "It's treating them like friends." For another hour, the humans and the devourer interacted peacefully. The creature seemed to understand that these new beings meant no harm. It was curious, playful, and surprisingly gentle for something so large. Finally, Lisa and Jake swam back to the ship. The devourer followed them part of the way, as if it was sorry to see them go. As the creature disappeared back into the deep water, the Vorthic crew stood in stunned silence. Everything they had believed about the devourer had been proven wrong. "It was peaceful," Zethkal said finally. "Curious. Almost ... friendly." "Because it's just an animal," Lisa said as she dried off. "A very large, very intelligent animal. But not a monster." The trip back to the city was very different from their previous voyages. Instead of fear and relief, the Vorthic felt wonder and excitement. They had made contact with the devourer in a completely new way. News of the successful experiment spread quickly through the city. The Vorthic society began to change almost immediately. Young Vorthic wanted to learn more about their ocean creature. Scientists began planning new studies of the devourer's behavior and intelligence. But the biggest change came at dinner time. Captain Morrison had asked the ship's chef to prepare a special meal for their Vorthic hosts. As the humans sat down to eat, the Vorthic watched in fascination. "What is this food?" Zethkal asked, looking at the plates. "Calamari," Jake said with a smile. "Fried squid rings. It's one of our favorite seafood dishes on Earth." The Vorthic made soft, amazed sounds as they watched the humans eat what looked like tiny versions of the devourer's tentacles. "You really do eat creatures like our devourer," the green Vorthic said. "We do," Lisa confirmed, "though usually much smaller ones. Your devourer is probably too big and too intelligent to be considered food. We'd treat it more like a whale or dolphin on Earth." "What are whales and dolphins?" Zethkal asked. Tony grinned. Large, intelligent ocean creatures that humans protect and study instead of eating. Like what the Devourer could become for us. The Diamond Vorthix said thoughtfully. Exactly, Jake agreed. Instead of fearing it, you could study it, learn from it, maybe even work with it. As the meal continued, the Vorthix asked endless questions about Earth's ocean life and humanity's relationship with sea creatures. They were amazed by the idea that humans swam in oceans filled with potentially dangerous animals. Your species sees opportunity where we saw only terror, Zethkal observed. We see life, Lisa corrected. All life has value, whether it's scary or not. The evening ended with plans for future cooperation. The Vorthix wanted to learn human methods for studying ocean life. The humans were eager to study Vorthix crystal technology and harmonic communication, but the most important change was in how the Vorthix saw their world. They no longer lived in fear of their oceans. They could explore, swim, and discover new things without worrying about angering a monster dot. As the humans prepared to leave Vorthix space, they received a final message from Zethkal. Thank you, Sky Travelers, the message said. You have given us back our world. We no longer worship monsters. Now we study friends. Jake smiled as he read the message to his crew. I think we've done good work here. And the best part, Tony added with a grin, is that we didn't even have to mention sharks or bears or spiders. Lisa laughed. Let's save those revelations for our next visit. As the Frontier's Edge left the Vorthix system, its cargo holds contained samples of crystal technology and recordings of harmonic communication.